Africa is on the edge of a transformation so massive that in a few decades, the economic map of the world could look completely different. What's coming isn't just another foreign investment plan or development aid package. It's a shift in global power. And at the center of it all, BRICS. This group of emerging economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has just revealed its strategy for Africa. And it's not what most people think. It's not about charity, and it's not about simply replacing the dollar. It's something far bigger. Chapter 1. The Rise of BRICS in Africa. To understand what's happening, let's go back to history for a moment. After World War II, America launched the Marshall Plan, pouring what would be today's equivalent of $135 billion into rebuilding Europe. It wasn't just about helping, it was about securing influence, building alliances, and shaping the global order. That plan changed the world for the next century. Now BRICS is doing something even bigger. They're positioning themselves to invest over $800 billion in Africa's future. But here's what most people are missing. This isn't just about money. It's about control. It's about rewriting the rules of global trade development and manufacturing. And if you think this won't affect you, wait until you see what's coming. BRICS has evolved beyond a group of emerging economies. It has become a global force that challenges the dominance of Western financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. While these institutions have long dictated the economic policies of African nations, often attaching high-interest loans and strict conditions, BRICS offers a different approach. Instead of forcing African nations into economic dependence, BRICS promotes mutual growth and cooperation. The focus is on building sustainable economies through direct investments, infrastructure projects, and financial reforms that reduce Africa's reliance on external influences. This is why BRICS is becoming the preferred partner for many African countries looking for a fairer economic future. Chapter 2. Africa's struggle. Africa is rich. It has 60% of the world's arable land, massive mineral reserves, and an exploding workforce. So why, after decades of international aid and foreign investment, are so many African nations still struggling economically? The answer isn't just bad leadership or corruption, it's structural. In the 1980s, the World Bank and the IMF introduced what they called structural adjustment programs. These policies forced African countries to float their currencies, remove essential subsidies, privatize state-owned enterprises, and open their markets to competition overnight. The result? African industries collapsed. Local farmers and manufacturers couldn't compete with cheap imports, and entire economies became dependent on foreign loans and aid. Many countries have still not fully recovered from these policies. So ask yourself, when was the last time a Western institution funded a project that connected multiple African nations? It almost never happens. Sure, the West is now reacting to China's influence with their own counter-projects like the Global Gateway. But these are responses, not initiatives. Meanwhile, BRICS is taking action. Look at what BRICS is funding right now. The Tanzania Standard Gauge Railway Project, $1.6 billion to connect Kenya, Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ethiopia. This isn't just a railway, it's the foundation of a new African trade network. And it's not just about transportation. BRICS members are investing in industries, energy, and production, unlike previous foreign investments, which focused on extracting raw materials. BRICS is helping Africa become a manufacturing hub. That changes everything. Africa's consumer market will hit 2.4 billion people by 2050. The number of millionaires is expected to grow by 47% in the next decade. This isn't just a developing region, it's an economic superpower in the making. Chapter 3. The Strategy for Wealth in the New Africa. This shift isn't about choosing between the West or BRICS. It's about leveraging both to create a new economic order. And if you're watching this right now, you need to be thinking ahead. Start by looking at industries with high import dependency. If a country imports 80% of a product, that's an opportunity, not a problem. Look at regional value chains. Where do the raw materials exist? And where is the production happening? There's a gap waiting to be filled. And most importantly, don't wait for comfortable conditions. Dangote didn't wait for things to be easy before he built his refinery. He saw the resistance, faced it head-on, and is now changing the entire industry. If you're waiting for the perfect moment, you'll be watching from the sidelines as others seize the biggest economic opportunity of the 21st century. One of the biggest game changers is BRICS' $800 billion investment strategy for Africa. This plan is set to transform key industries, including infrastructure, trade, and manufacturing. For decades, Africa has struggled with inadequate roads, railways, and energy supplies, making it difficult for businesses to grow. BRICS is stepping in to fill these gaps, providing funding for major infrastructure projects that will strengthen trade and boost local economies. When transport networks improve, goods move faster and cheaper. Right now, many African countries face high transportation costs due to poor roads and outdated railway systems. With BRICS' investment, these costs will drop significantly, making local businesses more competitive and lowering prices for consumers. Manufacturing is another focus of this investment strategy. For too long, African nations have relied on imported goods, making them vulnerable to global market fluctuations. By building up local industries, BRICS is helping African countries become more self-sufficient, creating jobs and fostering innovation. Chapter 4. A shift away from Western financial control. For decades, African countries have relied on Western financial institutions, which have often imposed strict loan conditions, forcing nations into cycles of debt. Many African leaders have expressed frustration with these systems, which prioritize creditor interests over national development. BRICS is offering an alternative, a financial model that supports Africa's long-term growth without the burdens of restrictive conditions. At the center of this shift is the BRICS New Development Bank. Unlike the IMF and World Bank, the NDB provides loans tailored to the needs of developing countries. This means African nations can access funds for crucial projects without facing extreme repayment conditions or political interference. The focus is on sustainable development, roads, energy projects, and businesses that will fuel long-term economic stability. BRICS is also reducing Africa's dependence on the US dollar in international trade. This is huge. Many African economies suffer due to fluctuations in the dollar, which impacts import and export costs. BRICS nations are pushing for trade in local currencies, allowing African countries to stabilize their economies and take control of their financial future. Egypt, for example, is already exploring ways to trade with BRICS members in local currencies. If major economies like Nigeria and South Africa follow suit, it could reshape Africa's financial landscape completely. Fewer dependencies on external currencies mean greater economic autonomy for African nations. Chapter 5. BRICS expands its African influence. In recent years, BRICS has expanded its presence in Africa by welcoming new members, including Egypt and Ethiopia. This expansion strengthens the alliance's influence on the continent and provides African nations with a greater voice in global affairs. Egypt's inclusion in BRICS is particularly significant. As a major trade hub between Africa, Europe, and Asia, Egypt plays a strategic role in global trade. Its participation in BRICS enhances trade opportunities for African countries looking to expand their markets beyond traditional Western partners. Ethiopia, with its rapidly growing economy, adds another layer to BRICS' African strategy, reinforcing the coalition's commitment to regional development. This expansion highlights a broader trend. African countries are moving away from relying solely on Western partners and instead collaborating with emerging economies that understand their needs. Chapter 6. Agriculture and Food Security. Agriculture is at the heart of Africa's economy, Yet many African countries struggle with food security due to climate change, economic instability, and outdated farming practices. BRICS has recognized this challenge and is tackling it through the BRICS Grain Exchange Initiative. This initiative aims to stabilize agricultural markets by creating a structured platform for grain trade between BRICS nations and African partners. By doing so, BRICS is improving access to essential food supplies while promoting sustainable agricultural practices. Countries like South Africa, which produce surplus grains, can now easily export to neighboring nations facing shortages. This not only enhances food security, but also strengthens regional economic ties. Beyond trade, BRICS is investing in modern farming techniques, technology, and infrastructure to boost agricultural production. By introducing new methods and providing farmers with better tools, Africa can increase its food output, reduce waste, and create more jobs in the agricultural sector. Chapter 7. Security and Stability in Africa. Economic growth cannot happen without stability, and BRICS understands this. Recent conflicts, political instability, and security challenges have disrupted progress in several African nations. Recognizing these challenges, BRICS is increasing its role in promoting peace and stability on the continent. During recent summits, BRICS leaders discussed strategies for enhancing security cooperation and addressing the root causes of conflict, instead of relying on external military interventions. BRICS advocates for African-led solutions that empower local governments and communities. Extremist groups, political unrest, and military coups have created instability in several regions. By supporting diplomatic engagement, conflict resolution initiatives, and economic opportunities, BRICS is working to create a more secure environment for African nations to grow and prosper. Chapter 8. The Manufacturing Revolution No One Saw Coming. Most people think BRICS is only about getting rid of the dollar, but that's like saying social media is just about replacing phone calls. It's not about a single change, it's about rewriting the entire system. BRICS isn't just offering Africa loans with better conditions. They're offering something even more valuable, a seat at the table. And here's the part that could change your life. The biggest opportunities aren't in trading, they're in manufacturing. When China opened up in the 1980s, the wealth explosion didn't come from selling products made elsewhere. It came from making them. Africa is now at that same turning point. Think about it. What products are being imported by multiple African nations that could be produced locally? Right now, Africa imports a massive percentage of basic goods. But that's not a weakness. It's a business opportunity. Take Nigeria's Dangote oil refinery, the largest single-train refinery in the world. Nigeria has long been an importer of refined fuel, even though it has huge crude oil reserves. But Dangote saw an opportunity and built a refinery to change that. Did the importers welcome him? Absolutely not. They fought him every step of the way because disruption threatens the status quo. But disruption is where real wealth is built. And that's exactly what's happening across multiple industries in Africa. Chapter 9. More than just economics. BRICS' influence in Africa extends beyond economics. The alliance is also fostering cultural and humanitarian ties that strengthen relationships between member states and African nations. Educational exchanges, cultural festivals, and artistic collaborations are being promoted to build stronger connections between people. These initiatives celebrate shared heritage and values, helping to create a sense of unity and understanding. Humanitarian efforts are also a key part of BRICS' engagement in Africa. During health crises, natural disasters, and economic hardships, BRICS nations have provided aid and resources to affected communities. Unlike some Western-led aid programs, BRICS' approach focuses on long-term solutions rather than short-term relief. Stronger communities lead to stronger economies, and BRICS recognizes the importance of a holistic approach to development. Africa's growing partnership with BRICS is one of the most important economic shifts happening today. Yet, this story remains largely overlooked by mainstream media. Why? because it challenges the traditional power structures that have controlled Africa's economic narrative for decades. Chapter 10. What comes next? BRICS understands something crucial. Africa's future isn't in 54 separate markets. It's in one massive unified market of over 1 billion people. By 2050, that number will double. That's why BRICS is focusing on infrastructure that connects countries, industries that create regional supply chains, and financial systems that allow African nations to trade in their own currencies. This isn't speculation, it's already happening. More African countries are joining BRICS, increasing their influence in global decisions. Meanwhile, BRICS is creating alternatives to the IMF and the World Bank, providing financing options that don't come with the same crushing conditions that kept African economies struggling for decades. This transformation is not happening overnight, but the momentum is undeniable. As African nations build deeper relationships with BRICS, they are stepping into a future that prioritizes fairness, growth, and self-reliance. So, what do you think? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps bring these important stories to light. Thanks for watching,